I think the community is the most beautiful part of the Web3 NFT space. It's like the possibilities of what of what can be done with a lot of people and a lot of supporters. It's incredible.
You're listening to the Unstoppable Podcast, the go-to place for everyone to learn about the latest innovations in Web3, NFTs, and the decentralized web. Welcome to the metaverse. GM, welcome to the Unstoppable Podcast. My name's Josh Gordon. I'm your host. Today, we're diving into the world of NFTs with Pablo Stanley. He's a designer, an early 2021 NFT artist and founder of Robotos, which I feel like came out years ago, but it's awesome that was one of the OG collections. And I've really seen him cultivate a great community that extends just beyond the metaverse and into the real life too. So I'm excited. Pablo, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me here, Josh. I love your space. I love your studio here. I can see some art behind you. And I'm
Yes.
describing this to the audience because this is a podcast. And I don't know if people know you. Like visually I see some plants, like natural light. That's really nice.
Yeah.
I love that space that you have there. And can you tell
Appreciate
me
it.
about you have a skateboard behind you with some art. What is that?
Yeah, so behind me, I got my Mutant Ape Yacht Club skateboard deck. It was like a limited edition drop they did, I don't know, 5 months ago. So I've got a Mutant Ape myself. So that's that. And then on the other side of me, I've got some artwork from a personal concert that I threw with one of my best friends. So we both threw rap concerts locally back home, and so I've got ticket stubs along with a picture from the show.
Oh my
And
God! Hold on. So, are you an artist? Are you a musician?
You know, this is a great question. I appreciate you asking. So I actually started my creative journey behind the camera as like a photographer and videographer. And
Wow.
so I've always been an artist from the sense of I've created for other people. Like I help make music videos, and then in the picture behind me for the concerts I would also DJ and hype man. So you tell me, is DJing, hype manning, and videography, is that still considered an artist? Because I feel like a lot of times it's we think of more people creating like the actual pieces of art versus video isn't always thrown into the same
I I think
bucket.
you are the unsung hero, the one of the unsung heroes who is behind the cameras, behind the glamour, like making things happen, making others just look beautiful, sound cool, look cool. So what you do and what you've done, it's seriously an art. And I say this, I used to hustle too. I used to hustle too, like in the would you call I suppose like on your side you will also call it the scene of just like all the musicians and all the artists who will be making parties and stuff and,
Yeah.
and and just like little concerts or gigs. And I used to be a photographer myself, but I would be like I don't know if you did this, but also a photographer for parties. And I will be the
Yep.
one like documenting the parties and just
Yeah.
like a people getting drunk and
I
having a good
would
time.
I would DM basically. This was back in like 2016, 2017. I would just DM DJs and rappers, and I'd say, hey, I see you're playing a show, I'll shoot it for you. And then this moment I had was I ended up shooting this DJ set for it was like a 5,000 person concert, and I shot the DJ set for the opener, and then I noticed that the headliner didn't have anyone out there with them. And so I kind of I had my media pass. I just walked out on stage and started shooting them behind the DJ booth. I ended up standing on top of the DJ booth, shooting them from the top perspective. And
Yeah.
then it was like this moment where I felt the energy from 5,000 people screaming in the crowd. I felt like an artist there up there with the DJ. He was interacting with me, so I knew it was, he told me to stand up on the table. And it was from that moment on that I kind of realized I may not be musically inclined, but I have the skill to operate a camera, and that camera can put me in situations that I never expected to be in. And honestly, I can probably track it all the way through to this moment right here with you, being on camera and podcasting, because my creative journey really started, in the video realm. And I'd say it led me to today with you. And I wasn't expecting to talk about my art journey though.
It is cool because you took a chance, you took a risk, you took an opportunity you saw there, and and you said like, hey, I'm going to be that person who's documenting this and is documenting this for this artist. Like in a I would say this as someone who has someone be on the DJ booth and like having someone taking photos. Number one, it feels cool because like if someone is taking photos, then you feel like, well, if they're taking photos, that means the party's cool. I feel
Yeah.
important, you know. So like you being there as a photographer actually make the party better because like it validates the musician, it validates the crowd, it validates that this is a good time and it needs a photographer to document it.
Yeah.
So I don't know, you were contributing to the energy of the artist and maybe not, you weren't considering it that way, but you were, you know, like the role of the photographer, the role of the people who are behind the scenes doing other stuff. It's really important to just like make the vibe better, you know. So
100%. Well,
it's
I appreciate that. I appreciate the validation. I don't, if anyone's watching on video right now, I can't wipe the smile off my face. Thanks for starting off the podcast like that, Pablo. I mean, it's a great transition. How, my first question to you was, are you having fun? And then, you know, my second question on top of that is, how has that felt taking the risk, launching an NFT project and really blossoming into something that is just this amazing community I've seen today?
okay. So there are different questions there. One is like, are you having fun?
You look like
I,
it.
I suppose like anything that you do, like after a while, and like it becomes, even when you started and you're doing something that it's true to your core, it's true to you. If you do it often, and then you have a team and you do all that stuff, then it becomes less of a fun thing and less of a side project, and it becomes more of a job and it becomes more of work, you know. So in in a way you could say that like a lot of the stuff that we are doing and a lot of stuff that I do right now is very different from what I did when I started. Like when I started, I was doing mostly like doodles. Like I was doing all the art and I was creating a collection and I was like creating this world, you know. So, but now it's really about maintaining a community, and a community that always has like a ton of expectations, and whatever you do, you're never going to meet those expectations, and they're always going to want more. So, your question, like, are you having fun? I will be honest. Sometimes it's not that fun. Sometimes
Yeah.
it's just like having a like people who are always just like there, like vocally, like talking to you directly to the creator. It's I think there is a lot of good stuff, you know, like hey, you're hearing directly from your supporters, like their support. You're hearing their concerns, you're hearing what they care about. So that's really important for me as a who's not just only an artist, but it's also someone. I'm 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 a product thinker. I'm a maker and I'm a designer. So like having a user input is really important because like that helps you improve your
Yeah.
product. You know, it helps you iterate and it helps you just like, oh, okay, well, let's do it this way.
It's crazy. It's crazy that, and it's something I feel like we don't talk about enough in the NFT world, is just this transition with everybody having a direct line to the founders of the project, the people really running it behind the scenes. In like a traditional company situation, you don't speak to the CEO of, I don't know, I'm just, Netflix has been in the news recently. Like, you don't talk to the CEO of Netflix every day. You hear from them on a quarterly basis. And all of a sudden, you're expected to have this ongoing communication. And that really can lead to burnout and I would say like other consequences that project founders may not anticipate at the beginning.
It's yeah, and you mentioned burnout, and it is something that I think is rampant now in the community, and I would say that it's sometimes something that I feel like I don't know, like I feel sometimes tired and drained. I feel like whatever I do, it feels like a failure, and there's always like a little bit of self doubt, and like that drives you to lose a little bit of your motivation. You know, I will say this too. Sometimes, like the space, like how what it started as a for me, it was just like, oh man, this is like just like a new place to develop my art and have a connection with my supporters. This is amazing. But then you start seeing in the space that like a most of the people care only about they're there because of the financial reasons, which is okay. That's great. But at least my expectations were tarnished. Then it's like, oh, okay, they actually don't care about the art. It's the art is just there. So you become I become a little bit maybe detached, and as the artist who is the only one who actually cares about the art, and not only myself, I think my team is just amazing, and I wouldn't be here without my team and that core slice of supporters on our Discord who are just there because they love the art, because they love the stories, because they're really there to create something new. So that small slice of the supporters are like really like what keeps us going. But like when you see the rest, like it's hard not to grow a little bit cynical and negative, where
Mm.
like, oh, yeah, this is not like
So,
whatever you do is never going to be enough. Whatever you do, you're always going to fail. So you feel a little bit helpless, and trapped.
yeah.
And so I don't
Well,
know,
I
like wow, I'm just like coming out as just like the yeah, like I think I'm not alone in this. Like I know that a lot of founders, creators, and people in teams and other artists are feeling a little bit like this. And maybe they don't tell you that because that creates FUD. You're gonna
I
talk about
appreciate
these
the
things.
honesty. Yeah, no, I appreciate the honesty, and also want to say like those feelings are so valid, and I think it's impactful for others to hear the experience you're going through when all of a sudden your art has this massive monetary value put behind it, and then people are expecting it to maybe be things that it wasn't originally intended to be. And what I see in NFTs so often is this constant shifting in expectations. All of a sudden, a different project starts doing something, and everyone starts saying, "Oh, why aren't we doing that too?" And it's okay for projects to be different, to serve different purposes, to have different roadmaps. But so you kind of explain some of these challenges you're facing. Now, how are you handling those moving forward? I mean, I've seen you continue to build, and maybe some of this is less art focused and it's more utility focused. I'm not quite sure. You tell me, like, with the Robotos microverse, you've
Yeah.
got the time partnership. I mean, do you still see that as proliferating the art, or is it more of a community expectation and utility focused play?
I think so. Here's the thing. I don't have anything against utility. I actually I love utility. I love the idea of like a bringing something that is valuable, something that is like going to create something special, and that by having a roboto you have access to this, or by having a roboto or having this specific token that you're showing support, then it gives you this other piece of art that we're creating. I love all of that. I think the problem is not, and utility for me is something also of a driver too. Like because I'm like I was saying, I'm not just an artist. I'm really also we are a product team. We before Robotos, and still on this, like my main job is not Robotos. My main job is actually like or tooling inside Bueno. That's my main focus actually. On Robotos, like we have been able to leverage the work that we have been doing on Bueno and the technology that we have been developing and all the product that we have been developing to use it on Robotos too and bring utility to Robotos. But that's really a huge driver for me and for my team, I think, where it's like, hey, help other artists, other creators, other communities, other community builders to just like have the tools that are necessary for them and consequentially also bring utility. So I think that's a huge driver for us, where it's like and something that just like wakes me up in the morning and just like, yeah, let's go do this. Hey. And it's creating the tools for people so they can create their microverse, like the tools so people can create their contract without the need of a developer, the tools for people so they can create a 10K collection really easily, like seriously in seconds. We have the tools to do that, and now we're like about to deploy, about to launch an alpha or a contract deployer. So you don't only create the art, but you can also put it on the test net, put it in mainnet, test your collection, put it out there, mint it, have a mint page that your people can use, your collectors can use, and all of this without the help of a developer.
Yeah, which is
Nothing
huge.
against developers. It's more like, hey, you're an artist, you're a product maker, you're focus on the things that are really important to you. You know.
Yeah. No,
So
I definitely wanted to dive into Bueno, and just for anyone who's not familiar, it's something that Pablo, you're the CEO of Bueno, and it's a like self-serve smart contract deployer, and exactly what you're describing, tools for non-technical people to start creating NFT collections, which I think is so important. I was actually just talking to a friend yesterday, and we have this NFT idea, and the minting and the smart contract side is just where we kind of hit the wall.
yeah, and then you have to look for a developer, and I'm not saying that they're not. It's just the space. You don't know who you can trust. You know, that's one. And whoever is out there that you can actually trust, they already have a ton of other projects queued up, because the people with the Solidity devs who are really good are, you can count them with the fingers in your hand. Like it's there are not a lot of them. So like, having those tools for people like you, that's our driver. That's like, hey, let's help them, because it's almost like like tools that you would need to just like create back in or now, like create a website. You know, like you might not actually know HTML, or CSS or JavaScript, but you have an idea and you want to develop it, you know? So like, and now there are tools that allow you to do that. Just a creator, you have an idea, and there are tools to just drag and drop, and no code needed to create a beautiful landing page. That's the kind of mentality that we are having on like NFT creators, NFT builders, where it's like, you have the idea of the art, you have the idea of what this smart contract should do, how the interaction should be with your collectors, where it's like, having a like an allow list linked to it, having a max per wallet, having a supply that like having a pre-sale, all of those things that you will need to have that. Like we're building the tool so you can just do all of that. And
That's
anyway,
so awesome.
It's really exciting for us, because for us it has been like Robotos in a way was a way for us to learn, like for us to understand the space. We got in there like knowing very little about the space, only know about NFTs. I had launched some NFTs. Horrible, like nobody bought them. But then I actually gave them away. I was like, okay, to a friend. And well, actually one person actually did buy one of my first NFTs, who, thank you so much, that's his name. He was my first collector. Anyway, like fast forward, let's create a collection. I didn't know everything that was going to be needed. Like I didn't know that after dropping them, I would have to continue working on it. So like, okay, after dropping it, it's not like, okay, well, goodbye, thank you for being collectors. No, hold on. People are like, yo, I need some utility, I need this roadmap, I need this thing. So then suddenly like, oh my God, all these responsibilities. I didn't know about this.
You were writing the PFP playbook as it was being created. I mean, when Robotos came out, it was really in a phase where everyone was experimenting with these profile picture and community type NFTs, and the utility just kind of started happening. Because originally, like Punks as the OG like profile picture kind of project, they didn't have utility, and still they still really don't. We'll see what Yuga Labs does, right? But then all of a sudden, you and the Bored Apes started kind of pioneering what that would look like. I do want to ask some more broad Web3 questions, but maybe one more on the Robotos is just what was the most impactful like lesson learned coming out of that creation process up to where you are at today?
I think a lot of things to learn, but I can tell you what I think was really exciting, and what I was cynically a little bit in the beginning, just like complaining a little bit. Actually, that was one of the biggest things that like keeps us going is the community side. Having a community that is supportive, that is there, like a trying to make this a success and contributing and trying to be part of this has been incredible, an incredible experience as a creator. Having people who are so passionate about what you're making is really a dream come true. You know, as an artist, like having like supporters of your art and what you do. Like that's what all artists we want. We just want to be loved. We just want to be accepted. So
Yeah.
that was an amazing experience, and like with its caveats, of course, because then like with people who are truly passionate, then they will tell you their concerns very openly, very candidly too. So it's hard not to take it personally and not just like say, "Hey, I'm a failure. I failed my supporters," and then like that can also just like drive you insane. I
Yeah.
think so, but I think the community is the most beautiful part of the Web3 NFT space. It's like the possibilities of what everyone of what can be done with a lot of people and a lot of supporters is it's incredible.
Totally. Now, we talked a lot about Robotos as a community, but now just a little bit more broadly, like PFP projects in general. Now, do you think that this digital identity is really going to stick long term? I mean, we're seeing it really happen on Twitter, but do you think more people will start adopting digital identities, and will those identities be fluid? Like, will we change what we look like online, or do you think we're going to start honing in on like your Roboto is your identity or your ape is your identity everywhere we go, or do you think it's going to be a little bit more fluid?
I I think this has been a great way to get started with NFTs, art and identity. It's just like a art makes sense. It's an image. It's the first way to put digital art in a way that is how are you calling it? Like that you can actually collect it. That it's not that it's a one out of one. That you can prove ownership. That you can prove that not there's just one of it. For example, so like which is something that you will enjoy in the physical world, right? So I think like starting with art, I think it made sense for NFTs to start that way, and I think
Yeah.
it also made sense to start with identity, right? Whereas like a having this NFT prove who you are or where you belong to, whereas like I belong to this community, and hence I my values are aligned with this. Hence my beliefs are like this, and my culture in a way it's I'm by being part of this community in a way I'm telling you like a by being a mutant for example it's telling you a little bit of the things that I care. By being a roboto it's telling you and having it as a profile pic or having it as on your Twitter like a identifier like
Yeah.
this is my NFT and I put it as a profile pic. uh, it tells other people like a little bit about you, a lot about you if you want to dig deeper, because like it's a huge thing, right? You're placing your photo, that selfie that you potentially took, and you're putting a random doodle from a different artist, but you're also saying at the same time, I care about this. I believe in this. So I think that will evolve into other things. Right now, it's just a JPEG, and I think the JPEG will evolve into other technologies, into other things that the NFT will support, and the NFT like technology will also support evolve. I think to support all other ways to identify yourself and say what the NFT tells about you. So I think Yes, I think yes that will evolve, and I think it will remain. I don't think it will remain the way that we're seeing it right now. If you ask me 5 years from now, well, it might be something totally different, and we might see the JPEGs and all that just as the very early ways of using NFTs and art in an in that I don't know sense of identity, but I think NFTs are not just that. NFTs, the promise of them is that hey, they can be used for a lot of things. Just like hey,
Mhm.
like if we're talking about Web3 and the metaverse and this idea of like a proven ownership and just like having digital assets being proved to be just like a yours or the idea that hey, I own them, and by having ownership of this object, I can trade it, I can sell it, I can just like have it with myself. I think that's going to evolve to just like it's already evolving to not just PFPs and not just art one out of ones, but it's also like on redeemables or like a ways to just like a with this token is kind of like a ticket, like a this is a ticket that gets me access to this thing, or this is a membership that gets me access to this, which we have already been using the PFP as that, but I
Yep.
think there's going to be we're already seeing evolutions of just instead of just a PFP, it's more of a card. It's more of a members club card or something.
Yeah, I think
That's one.
I
That's
think NFTs that you can attach data to is going to be very important. Like, I work for Unstoppable Domains. We work on NFT domains, and it's been really interesting to just learn how like you can start associating different pieces of Web3 data to an identity, and maybe that identity isn't your PFP. Just like I think your wallet isn't going to be the thing that you connect to every site. It's we're going to start evolving, and we started just connecting our wallets to sites. We started having our token be equal to our PFP, but I think I do agree that will change too.
yeah, and I think it's one thing that is we're starting to see is just objects, digital objects. Right now, we've seen art as like for example here in my bag, in my
Yeah.
wall, I have a lot of art, and I own it, and you can see it's really easy for you to say like yeah that's yours, and there's only one because it was hand painted, so I don't need to go into etherscan to understand that that's a one out of one and that you own it because it's in your house. But in the web3 and the digital space, we need some way to just like identify what's yours, and from that like I can trade it and I can do whatever I want. And I think we have been using it on art, but I think later I can say that little furniture is mine. That I don't know, that rug, that plant, all the objects, digital objects, are mine, and I bought them, and now that I bought them, I can do whatever I want with them. And a clear example of this is we see it on Web2 games, just games. The gaming industry, like gamers have spent billions of dollars a year on virtual goods. Like that is already happening, but users don't really own those objects. The company does because it's Web2. It's hosted over there. It's not like you for example, a really clear example that I think anyone can understand, it's buying a digital book, for example. Like, let's go back to the physical way of doing it, right? You go to a library and
Mm.
you go around and you buy a book. Maybe you buy a book because of its cover. It's like, oh, I like. I suppose this is gonna be good because it has a good cover. You go, you buy it, and you're like excited. I'm going to go to the park or maybe to house to just like read it. I don't know, maybe to a coffee shop just to look smart, And in the coffee shop, just like, hey, maybe I'll be reading, and other people, oh, that's a smart person. Uh, but imagine if in the bookstore, as soon as you want to get out, they will tell you like, "Hey, where are you going? You cannot go out with that book." Wait, but I just bought it. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. You bought it here, and you have to read it here. You can only read it here. Hey, but I want to go read it in the park, and I want to go read it in the coffee shop. Oh, I mean, no. We have a coffee shop here. You
Yeah.
you can just read it here. So it's not suddenly that book, you cannot do anything with it unless you are inside their ecosystem, unless you're in their app, unless you are inside that place, unless it's a PDF, but who wants to read a PDF when you want that really easy way of reading a book that is like
You want
a digital form? But
yeah.
now you cannot do it because you don't really own it.
You want your assets to be able to be taken with you to the different digital places that you hang out. And right now,
Exactly.
the assets are stuck within certain environments. It's a certain website that has a database associated with it. And these NFTs allow we talk about composability a lot on the podcast, and they allow you to take an in-game asset with you throughout the entire ecosystem instead of just being stuck on like one spot. So I love
Yeah.
that. And I do know we're coming up on time here in a minute. Pablo's flying around the world. He's going to meetings left and right because he's starting companies, he's running communities. Pablo, I just got 3 more questions for you before we wrap up this pod. It's our 1-2 Web3. So the first question is, who's an influential Web3 creator, entrepreneur, collector that's inspired or educated you?
I think people on Cool Cats have been an inspiration, just like Extreme Tom, the developer, and Clone, the artist. Also on the other communities that have actually grown out of the other communities, and like actually one of our collectors who was Doug from Toy Boogers. I love the art, how he does it. He does it in a really peculiar way. And like what he does, you can see that he really cares about just like the art and just keep creating. So it's someone that motivates us, I think, to just keep creating and
Yeah,
seeing someone like that.
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. And then second question, what's your favorite NFT?
My favorite NFT. Oh wow. I don't know. I mean, can I say Robotos?
You can say if it's your
Yeah.
favorite.
I would say actually Robopets. Robopets, which is the companion from Robotos, it did just because of the sheer amount of love and work and time and effort that we put into them, and just like the thinking on the development, on the design of them, it was seriously a team effort, and also something that I think we did it out of love because it was just free for our collectors, and we just
Yep.
gave it out for them.
I've still got
And
my Robo Pets. So
oh, that's so
I think I
cool.
got 2 skateboard ones.
That's so cool. And I think just the challenge of making those was pretty cool because we learned a lot. And as for a personal experience with that NFT, I think is my favorite because like all the animations, all the technical challenges that we had, and all the art challenges that we had were made it pretty special for me personally, and I think for the team.
Yeah. Awesome. And last question, and you can answer it succinctly in a short answer. Doesn't need to be long, but is in 5 years, what's the craziest thing you think we'll be doing in the metaverse that people really aren't even thinking about yet?
What will we be doing in the metaverse? I think I don't know. I'm being cynical again, but I feel like maybe 5 years from now, the metaverse is is going to be just something that we're going to be laughing at about. Where it's like, oh, remember when we were talking and we are so obsessed with this thing? People were obsessed with this thing called the metaverse, and now we have this other thing that us in the past we cannot really think about.
The super
But
metaverse.
so like the megaverse or whatever it is, or like the whatever it is in the future, where it's like, oh yeah, remember? So yeah, I think 5 years from now we're going to be laughing at ourselves for thinking that the metaverse was the future. That's
Yeah.
me
And
being a little bit cynical,
I
maybe.
don't, I don't think that's cynical. I actually just think that's like recognizing that the innovation is going to be moving at such a pace that the things that we're going to be doing in 5 years aren't things we're just thinking about yet. And
Yeah,
that could just be a fact. Like the metaverse will look different than the vision we have now. Just like, I don't know, different technologies look different today than they did 5 years ago. So it's
exactly.
a good perspective. Well,
Yeah,
Pablo, I just wanted to say thank you so much for coming onto this podcast. I appreciate your perspective and your vulnerability and transparency with not only the things that excite you around building in Web3, but also the things that have been challenging, because I think that's a really good takeaway for all the creators and artists and builders listening to this pod. So if you can just end and let us know how to connect with you online, where to find you.
So just on Twitter, Pablo Stanley. So, and if you want to know more about Robotos, it's Robotos NFT. And also, I have a new project coming up that is called Humankind. So if you are interested in more like adventure and just like a community and art and other things that we care about, just go to also Humankind Art, which is a new project that I've been putting a lot of love into it.
Beautiful.
And also Bueno, and Bueno Art, and Bueno NFT, sorry, Bueno.art. So that's our tooling. Yeah, if you're an NFT creator, you should check it out.
I'm going to be keeping my eye on Bueno for sure, because I think it might be something I want to use here in the future. And I'll also be keeping an eye out on that next drop. Thank you so much, Pablo. I appreciate the insights, the vulnerability, the perspective that you brought to today's episode as a builder of NFT communities and also NFT tools and infrastructure for future creators. So thank you so much for joining. I really had a good time, and I couldn't end this podcast without saying beep boop, since I'm a Robotos holder myself. Now, for everybody listening, we are going to be doing a giveaway of a Robotos NFT. So be sure to follow me at JustWavyJ for information on that giveaway. Super excited to give away this PFP NFT to someone in the community who's listening and supporting the podcast. And if you enjoyed today's episode, if you're watching on YouTube, please drop a subscribe and a like on the video. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify podcasts, leaving a review and downloading the episode or following the show on there goes a really long way, and I appreciate it. So with that, we'll see you next week for another episode of the Unstoppable Podcast. I'm Josh Gordon. I'll see you in the metaverse. Peace out. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Unstoppable Podcast. If something we said today resonated with you, please subscribe, leave us a review, and share this with your friends. And remember, this conversation doesn't have to end here. Tweet us your thoughts, ideas, or questions at Unstoppable Web. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next week.